Okay, so here we are, the Infinite Monkeys, March 2023. Tonight we have Logan Sidwell, who has done some work with AI work and writing in his other lives instead of just being a writer. So tonight he's going to be telling us more about what's come new and answer some of the questions I think a lot of us have had. So Logan, go ahead and take it away.
Fantastic, thank you, Dan. You're going to tell immediately from the title of this thing that it's not all positive. ChatGPT Writer's Industrial Revolution. But before we dive in too much, I want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Logan Sidwell. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I'm twice published in computational geometry. I've assisted in the research of neural networks used to identify bees. I've written my own neural networks from scratch. And as a writer, I've written 60 education simulations for infinity learning. All of this put together, I just want to say I'm intermediate at AI work. I'm someone who has been in it and is not now. So I have a good idea of things, and I'd like to give you my thoughts. We're going to start all the way at the beginning. Chat-GPT is Microsoft's new chatbot. I've attached a link. Feel free to use it during the presentation. You'll have to give Microsoft your phone number, but they already have it. To use ChatGPT, you just log in and ask a question. You can ask it pretty much anything you'd like. As soon as you press enter, you'll see precisely what it's capable of. If you haven't tried it yourself, the question on your mind should be, is it any good? That's why we're here. It's why people are worried. ChatGPT isn't just good, it's excellent. To kick things off, I've chosen to do the cliche thing. I've asked ChatGPT to write an intro for me. Now, a classic trick in artificial intelligence to sell things is to curate the AI's response. That way, even if you get 999 terrible responses, you only show the one good one. For this demo, I gave ChatGPT one chance. The prompt was, write an introduction to the presentation, ChatGPT Writer's Industrial Revolution. And here is the result. I'm going to speed read the first half of this thing to you. Welcome everyone to the presentation on ChatGPT Writer's Industrial Revolution. Today we will explore how the advancements in artificial intelligence and natural language processing have revolutionized the way we approach writing tasks. From content creation to customer service chatbots, the advent of language models like GPT-3 have brought in about a new era in writing, where machines can generate human-like text with unprecedented accuracy and fluency. With the ability to analyze massive amounts of data, these models can learn to understand language in a way that was once thought to be uniquely human. I'm going to stop right there because the second half is when it gets inaccurate to the presentation. But this right here is the problem. We are facing completely new technology. This is significant on a scale of Google search and phone browsers. In the face of such a tool, it's easy for people to be misinformed. I've compiled a few of the biggest concerns on this page. During this presentation, we're going to explore how ChatGPT works, what it's capable of, and I'm going to address all of the concerns you can see here. Just for a moment, I want to take a second before we dive in. Is anyone here, do any of you have any other big concerns or questions about ChatGPT that I can write down so maybe we can address them at the end? And if not, maybe you can bring them up at the end.
I will. I will also watch the chat, and if people do it up, I'll signal in. So if they want to write it in the chat, I'll keep an eye on that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. Okay, for the time being, you guys can think about it. If you've got any outstanding questions, just shoot them over. Now, I don't want to get too carried away. I don't want to get your hopes up. I need to make one thing clear. Things will not stay the same. This presentation is called the Writer's Industrial Revolution for a reason. ChatGPT is better at doing some jobs than humans, but it's also limited. I can't say for how long, but for today, for the next decade, writing remains an art. Original ideas are safe. Long-form books are safe, but many parts of writing are not safe. ChatGPT is a very useful tool. If you aren't using it, you will watch people sprint past you and wonder how they can be so productive. Before we dive in, I want to give you a quick reference in your brain for when you should use ChatGPT. If you are completely blank on a task, or if you're completely blank on a task, or if you can turn off your brain to write it, ChatGPT will always be able to do it for you. It's something, there you go. So if you can turn off your brain, or if you're completely blank, ChatGPT should do it. So let's dive in. What else can ChatGPT do? And this is the fun part of the presentation, because I just want to show you guys how flexible ChatGPT is. I asked ChatGPT, write a report on car fumes in a Gothic style. It responded, I'm going to read the first half of this. The noxious fumes expelled by the exhaust pipes of countless cars are like the toxic breath of some sinister beast. They choke our cities and towns, spreading a sense of foreboding and despair. The dark and twisted shapes of the buildings seem to loom even larger in the fog, as if they too are succumbing to the foul influence of these fumes. There's not a lot of factual content there, but in my eyes, I think ChatGPT kind of nails what I've asked for. This one's more fun. Write a 911 phone call transcript in the style of Dr. Seuss. 911, what's your emergency? Oh dear, I'm in a fright. Someone's broken in. It's not right. I need help. I need it fast. Please help me. Can you do that? I hear you loud and clear, my friend. We'll get you help. We'll make amends. Stay calm, don't you worry. We'll send some help in quite a hurry. Thank you. You're so kind. I'll do my best to keep in line. I'll wait here by the phone. Please send help. I'm all alone. I love this one. This is just a few more of the examples of what ChatGPT can do without a second thought. It can write a simple code script to insert data into a database. It can simulate a terminal where you give it requests and it responds back. Someone even wrote a version where you say, make a sort of God terminal for another dimension and let me instruct things to change the world, and you respond back how it goes. Another one is you can have a back and forth conversation. I went ahead and asked ChatGPT to generate an analysis of why might makes right is not justified. I'm not going to read this out, but you can see immediately, and I'm talking 20 seconds, there it was. ChatGPT can write code, interact with a conversation, and give you philosophical analyses without a second thought. And these responses are terrifying. They're good quality and they're funny. Mind you, I think every one of us could do something better than ChatGPT, but we couldn't do it anywhere near as quickly. ChatGPT writes its content at 5 to 10 words a second. If you've tested this thing out, you know paragraphs are written before you can finish reading them. Yeah, Dan, you had a question.
So actually, we got a question from Amanda Hill.
Oh,
Let's
great.
say you ask ChatGPT for plot ideas for a mystery thriller, which of course will include killing and death. And ChatGPT sends you a warning message that you are violating their usage policy, and if you don't stop, you will be banned.
Yeah, that's sort of a curious thing about ChatGPT is it's very moderated. People are increasingly filtering it to ensure it's delivering the content they want and content they don't want. We're going to go through a few examples of that later. We're actually going to see one later on. I know I didn't completely answer that question. Let me take another look at it. Yeah, all of this is very possible. It's very possible that ChatGPT might tell you you're not allowed to generate certain content, and we're going to see that a little later on. For now, I'm gonna carry on. So we just mentioned that ChatGPT can generate this type of output in seconds, but ChatGPT also has its shortcomings. They only become apparent once we understand how ChatGPT works. So how does it work? Whose Line Is It Anyway used to have an improv game called Three-Headed Broadway Star, where each actor would take turns filling in the next word. You'd get a result like, hello, I am a dragon. And each contestant had to react to the last contestant's word. Broadly speaking, ChatGPT is doing this. It functions by writing one word at a time. For each word, ChatGPT looks back at the prompt, looks at what it's already written, and asks, what word should I write next? And this approach works amazingly well, but it also creates unique restrictions on ChatGPT's content. Let's go a little deeper into what ChatGPT is doing. ChatGPT uses a special computer science tool called a neural network. I want to go into detail on what a neural network is for the rest of this presentation, but we don't have 2 hours, so it's probably best if I just say a neural network is composed of neurons that train on various parts of a complex problem. For identifying a bird, one of those neurons might train on the presence of a beak, another one on wings, another on feathers, and all of those neurons, one that knows about the beak, wings, feathers, they all vote on what the final output should be. This is a simplification, but you can just take that for now. One of the challenges of neural networks is that they take an enormous amount of data to train, especially for a crazy broad topic like responding to a human request and writing paragraphs of English text. It's believed that ChatGPT was trained on every piece of literature ever written, every piece of research publicly available, every short story, every play, every article. Microsoft has scraped the web for everything it could possibly find and plugged it all into ChatGPT. They spent a decade or more labeling the data, and finally, the computer trained on that data for a full year. If you don't know, computers train very quickly. A year is an eternity. So after reading everything humans have ever written, ChatGPT was able to take in prompts and determine how to respond through basically just statistics and gut instinct. Now there's one caveat. An important takeaway is that ChatGPT is not capable of thought. It does not abstract things down into concepts. It doesn't plan ahead. All it does is use that statistics and gut instinct to put words in an order that we as humans recognize as significant. When all is said and done, ChatGPT doesn't have a clue what it's writing. Now, this is a lot of background information. So instead of remembering all of that, I want you to remember this quote. ChatGPT is stream of consciousness writing from the most well-read person in the world. Now, I think all of you are familiar with stream of consciousness writing. Just get the words on the page, don't think about what comes next, and don't doubt your instinct. You'll also see the phrase most well-read person on the planet. Let's be clear, that isn't someone trained in writing. This is someone who's been reading nonstop. They don't know how to write anything new. They just know which words statistically come after which other words. So now that we've talked about how the AI works, let's talk about its weaknesses. You may have seen this one coming already, but ChatGPT does not care if what it's saying is factually accurate. In the past, it has claimed the second largest country in South America is Nicaragua, which is incorrect. It's claimed the Napoleonic Royal Marines wear blue. That's also incorrect. It regularly cites non-existent research papers. A friend of mine used ChatGPT to generate an article, and he went, oh, it's great. They cite my research papers for me. And so I looked them up, and half of them never existed. In short, for this bot, fact does not matter. Now, the next weakness, this one listed here, unpredictably biased based on the content it receives, is considered one of the great AI problems. If biased information is used to train an artificial intelligence, the outputs from the AI will have the same bias. Companies have been using AI to review resumes for 5 to 10 years, and inevitably, every one of these job resume bots turns out to be racist, sexist, or otherwise unpredictably biased. Bots have been known to penalize resumes that feature the word women's, boost resumes with the name Jeremy, and reject resumes from certain colleges. Yes, Dan. Oh, I see there's a few more chats.
Yes, we got one from Talissa. That's the next question. And then that one is, so it uses words that statistically work with other words. It must use a corpus. Do you know if Microsoft created its own corpus or it uses Coca or another one?
I cannot speak confidently as to the internal functionality of how ChatGPT functions. I'm more giving you broad ideas. I am very confident that there is some kind of statistical analysis system that says, given these past words, what words ought to come next. And then the neural net looks at those words and votes which one should come up. But I can't say which program it uses. It may even be custom. I'm sorry, Talissa. Oh, look at that.
No, that's all the questions that apply to what you're talking about.
Sweet, thank you. Okay, I was just mentioning that previously resume bots have been known to show a lot of bias. ChatGPT faces the same problem. It is subject to the subconscious biases and whims of all human society. There is no clear example of that bias showing up. I can't say for sure when it will show up, but it will appear. And in some ways, it may be appearing right now through moderation. Yes.
Okay, there's another question from Pat. Do you know if it was taught rules of grammar and punctuation? It seems so.
Once again, this is one I can't confidently answer. The systems they use to determine how to generate a human sentence include punctuation as almost their own word. And so they can train in an unsupervised manner where they just observe sentences again and again and again and determine where commas belong the most. Yeah, Danielle, we're going to see that comment a little later on. One of the things, yeah, we'll talk about that comment a little later on. Danielle commented that in her experience, it uses the passive voice a lot. So let's jump on to the next set of weaknesses. ChatGPT, as I understand, it's a prediction model, isn't it? I'm reading a text here. It's not so much that it understands grammar as it reasonably expects where grammar is supposed to be. That's right. Yeah, it's almost more of a statistics machine than even a grammar tree. So let's talk about some weaknesses. It can't plan ahead. I've mentioned before that ChatGPT writes one word at a time. That means it's not worried about story structure, character arcs, or really anything other than coming up with another convincingly human word. Now, I should add a caveat to this comment. Because the best human content is always built with good story structures in mind, it's not hard to imagine that ChatGPT, through statistics, just by following the existing patterns, slips into the groove of existing story structures and accidentally puts together something good. ChatGPT can't plan ahead, but things work out for ChatGPT a lot. It's very good at choosing the right way to go forward. So the next comment here is ChatGPT can't remember the past. This is an interesting one, and one that I think captures why ChatGPT doesn't completely terrify me. Neural networks are very limited. Their biggest limitation is memory. Right now, ChatGPT can only remember its prompt and what it's written up to this point, and its total amount of response is very limited. It can only write 8 or 9 paragraphs. For any complex writing, you need to remember characters and plot lines. Since ChatGPT doesn't have the memory, its program is always looking to the future. Characters appear out of nowhere, then vanish again. Plot twists are forgotten as if they never happened. It's impossible to braid together a good story without memory, and ChatGPT is missing memory. And Johnny made the comment, yet. It's worth identifying that we are leaps and bounds ahead of where we were 10 years ago. Tech is accelerating fast. It's not hard to imagine that they determine a way to build its memory much, much larger. There's another comment. So the fact that its previous input and output don't loop back into itself is what enables us not to be assimilated by it yet. Yeah, its inability to deeply identify, it treats every word as equal. And as it writes more and more words, its old words sometimes fall away, and even it diffuses the value of the important moments. It treats a super important piece of dialogue as equal to description in the next sentence. So the next big weakness on ChatGPT is that it's limited by what's already been written. It's incapable of writing original content. ChatGPT is looking at the sum of all human history to decide what word should come next. If a certain word pairing has never occurred before, ChatGPT won't write it. But just as importantly, if a certain word pairing happens a lot, ChatGPT is very likely to write it. And I have a wonderful example in a minute that we're going to see that happen. Now, on a broader scale of originality, ChatGPT is unable to express new ideas, or even ideas that run counter to society. I'm gonna jump forward here. I went ahead and asked ChatGPT, why is might makes right justified? You saw earlier why it explained why might makes right is wrong. I asked it to take the opposite stance, and it responded two ways. The first time it said, might does not necessarily make right. In fact, the idea that might makes right has been widely discredited and is generally considered morally and ethically problematic. When I really insisted, I gave the prompt of justify might makes right. ChatGPT responded, as an AI language model, I cannot provide a justification for the concept that might makes right, as it is not a valid or defensible philosophical or moral position. What you should take away from this is that ChatGPT wants to go with the grain of society. It can't explore counter ideas or really even new ideas. It will write what's already been written. Now, we've talked about it. We've talked about all of ChatGPT's weaknesses. So let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT to write a book, shall we? I went ahead and gave ChatGPT a generic but clear prompt. Write a book about cyberpunk cowboys. I did this 3 times to get 3 different responses. Each one of them took like 8 seconds and gave me 500 plus words. For now, I want you to read the 2 sentences from each book. And everyone, I'd like you all to listen very carefully and give me your thoughts at the end, okay? So this is our first prompt. Write a short story about cyberpunk cowboys. In a world where technology had advanced beyond imagination and the Wild West still existed, there lived a group of cyberpunk cowboys. They rode horses with metallic legs, wore augmented reality glasses, and carried high-tech guns. Now let's see the next one. Write a book instead of a short story about cyberpunk cowboys. But despite their distrust of the city, the cowboys knew that it was the last frontier. As the Wild West gave way to the urban sprawl of the city, the cowboys were forced to adapt to the changing world around them. They rode horses with metallic legs, wore augmented reality glasses, and carried high-tech guns. Finally, I asked one more, write another book about cyberpunk cowboys. The year was 2077 and the world had undergone a technological revolution. The Old West had been transformed by advanced technology, and the cyberpunk cowboys had become legends in their own time. They rode horses with metallic legs, wore augmented reality glasses, and carried high-tech guns. Now, out of wild curiosity, do any of you have any thoughts on that? Feel free to just toss it in the chat.
It definitely repeats a lot. I mean, for one thing, metallic kept being used over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
It is vague. Metallic legs doesn't tell me much. I mean, a little bit. Augmented reality glasses, high-tech guns especially. I'm hung up on high-tech guns. That's not information. That's a big picture, like B-film footage. It tells me nothing about how I should be feeling about these cowboys. It irritates me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had two big takeaways from these, and I was going to show you one more text to really highlight this, but every one of them used the full sentence. They rode horses with metallic legs, wore augmented reality glasses, and carried high-tech guns. Because there wasn't specific enough prompts, ChatGPT constantly wants to write the same thing. Its statistical model always points it to the same sentences. Now, I was going to read this other sentence, but I think Laura really caught it, which is that ChatGPT also really likes to be vague and to tell stories. It doesn't take the active stance. It would prefer to tell you about a story than to make you live one. So let's discuss the plots for a second, because there were 3 full books. Let's see what the 3 plots were about. The first one, Jack and his gang help a local businessman defend some technology. It was that vague. After defending the technology, the businessman offers Jack a job, which he rejects before riding off into the sunset. Now, the next plot, Jack and his gang help a local businessman defend some technology. The businessman betrays Jack, but Jack and his gang defeat the businessman and ride off into the sunset. And the last one, Ace, the cyberpunk hacker, takes on a job to steal some technology. Ace is betrayed but gains the upper hand, then rides off into the sunset. You may see some repetition here. ChatGPT can't seem to help itself. We saw on the granular scale that ChatGPT is writing the same sentences again and again. But when we zoom out and look for full stories, it's the same story. It keeps telling the exact same stuff again and again. So when I was messing around with all of this, I wasn't super impressed by these chapters. So I went ahead and gave ChatGPT a new prompt. I said, write the big finale chapter for a book about cyberpunk cowboys featuring dialogue. And here's how it went. The air was thick with the sound of gunfire and the smell of smoke and burning electronics. The cowboys moved quickly, their guns blazing, taking out soldier after soldier as they charged forward. Luke and Rachel stood at the center of the battlefield, watching as the last of the corporate soldiers fell to the ground. We did it, said Rachel, her voice filled with awe. We did, said Luke, but it's not over yet. We have to make sure they don't come back. Mind you, this is just a short part of it. But I want to ask, do you guys see any improvement from the original?
Remarkable improvement. We've got characters, we've got conflict. We don't know exactly what's going on, but we have a general direction.
Yeah, that was the takeaway from me too. It seemed like for the first time, ChatGPT was actually telling the story, was actually showing us the story. And I feel bad about this. This is where I stab you all in the back, just like the local businessman does in all of my favorite cyberpunk cowboy stories. Even though I came in to tell you that ChatGPT can't write a book, the truth is, with proper prompting and guidance, it probably can. The story that ChatGPT makes is either going to be a mess or cliche. Characters are going to appear and disappear without warning, and there's going to be no deeper meaning. But it will be a book, and I guarantee someone is going to make $1 million selling it. If you decide to go down this road, be careful. The big takeaway from these ChatGPT books should be that every story ChatGPT tells has already been told. So instead of writing a book, what is ChatGPT good for? ChatGPT is very good at certain tasks, and you should be using it for those tasks. Danielle, one of our wonderful leaders of the chapter, is already using ChatGPT on a regular basis, and she was kind enough to provide me some examples. I think I just a moment. I got to read some of these comments. Okay, yeah, looks like there's no significant comment, no new questions. Yes, Danielle, I'd like to thank you for providing some of the examples of how you are using ChatGPT. Using this bot right now is a trend. Danielle showed me that there's already probably 1,000 different slideshows and videos about how to use it effectively and how to extract the most value from it. You already saw with the book, if you tell it, give me dialogue and give me a single chapter, it starts getting a lot more in detail. So let's talk about some of the tasks. Social media. This one should be a freebie. Give ChatGPT a prompt like, make a Facebook promotional post advertising a 25% off deal on my novel Groovy Dancing through Amazon e-reader. And I've never written an advertising Facebook post. Looking at this one, I would immediately go, well, I guess I don't need to write one. I'll just edit 1 or 2 of the words and send it out. Now, one of the other things that's cool from ChatGPT is turning bullet points into paragraphs. This is kind of the AI's bread and butter. You can tell it something like, explain how to lay a foundation using concrete, rebar, and retexturing, and immediately ChatGPT just dumped all this content on me. A lot of businesses recommend that you say, give me a networking strategy using these 3 techniques, and ChatGPT will often go into its banks and pull out very interesting information. A few more examples, generating a list of ideas. ChatGPT is trained on everything everywhere. In some ways, it's a search engine. And so if you ask for a list of something, it can often just dump out a big list right off the bat. It's already read every business blog, writer's guide, and podcast transcript out there. So if you're specific enough, ChatGPT will give you ideas and advice. And that's the kind of advice you're not going to find on the first page of Google. Emulating an expert. This one's dangerous, but it's also one of the ones that you can get the most value from. You can tell ChatGPT to behave as a certain vocation and then ask for its response on something, and it will give you a much more useful response. I mentioned it once at the beginning, but the hard and fast rule of how to use ChatGPT is this. If you are turning off your brain to write, you should be using ChatGPT instead. So, why is ChatGPT controversial? We're wrapping back to the start here. The AI is a little controversial. We mentioned some of the reasons why. I've put some of the others down here. The biggest cause of distrust in ChatGPT is what's happened to the digital art space: plagiarism. A year or 2 ago, companies built AIs capable of generating art. Over time, it became clear the digital art was sampling and copying other people's work. When put next to the work, and you can see this on the slide here, the plagiarism, it's really apparent. ChatGPT isn't quite as bad, and there's one reason why. It's because it had to train on all of mankind's data in order to be competent at all. That means individual stylings are usually lost in the deluge. Sometimes a ChatGPT book is gonna, someday, I'm certain of this, I'm very certain of this, someday there's gonna be a ChatGPT book. It's gonna be published, it's gonna be out there, and someone is gonna realize that this book plagiarized a phrase from a famous author. And the whole cause of it is just that ChatGPT, it was given a specific enough prompt that it just copied the content and wrote it down. The optimistic side of plagiarism is that the core of good writing is good storytelling. And ChatGPT can't steal new ideas. Poetry, though, poetry might be in some trouble. Another one of the issues that I have on this slide here is overuse. This is a classic AI problem. It's a classic tech problem. In the next 3 years, ChatGPT is going to be overused and overdone. Good writers are going to lose their jobs as managers use ChatGPT to automate every writing task. We've already covered why ChatGPT can't do it all, but it's still going to be put in charge of things it really shouldn't run. That's bad. And people are going to learn from those mistakes. I have a lot of thoughts on the business future of ChatGPT, but for now, I'm just going to say this. This tool is going to go crazy. And we're going to figure out precisely what it should be doing and what it shouldn't be doing. And then it's going to recede to a set of new normal boundaries between AI writing and human writing. There's a comment, how can ChatGPT be marketed long-term? People like following authors on social media, for example. This is something I didn't include in the presentation, but it's my opinion ChatGPT is not focused on fiction writing. Their target audience is enterprise companies producing support documents and support chats. They want to auto-generate content that they used to pay people for. And so ChatGPT, it's free right now. It's free so that everyone is using it. You may have seen already, there's a $20 membership thing that's popped up for people to use the advanced version. I'm of the opinion that that price is only going up, and they're slowly going to chop regular people off from the service as Microsoft expands the business into business uses. Business articles, support helplines, and technical documents. That's really what people want. That's where the money is for ChatGPT. I don't have any more thoughts on marketing ChatGPT right now. I guess I just went on a long tangent anyway. I'm only going to mention this third one for a second. Some bad actors are using ChatGPT. High school students cheating on papers, hackers who want free hacking scripts. There's this hilarious security vulnerability where sensitive information that was trained into ChatGPT can be retrieved from ChatGPT if you ask the right request. Anyways, it's something that affects every new tool, and ChatGPT is no exception. Really, the scariest thing about ChatGPT is it's going to eliminate jobs. It will, and it already has. Writers have already been laid off from BuzzFeed. A lot of writers who've been churning out a lot of articles are just being kicked to the curb while businesses think they can produce all of this content using ChatGPT. And unfortunately, it may turn out they're right about a lot of them. So let's go back to those original hot takes at the start of this thing. We've discussed a lot of them already, but I'll go through them one more time. ChatGPT is going to do all or most writing from now on. Because its memory is limited, because there's a disregard for factual accuracy, and there's an incompatibility with original thought, there are huge areas of writing that AI really can't touch. The next one here is ChatGPT is going to do coding from now on. This one's just for me. ChatGPT can write a short story. It can write a short script, but it can't build complex systems. That's true of writing. That's true of coding. There's not room in its head to keep everything it needs in order to build a deep and successful system. This next one, students will use ChatGPT instead of learning to write for themselves. That's absolutely true. It's already happening. Students are already using ChatGPT to create essays instead of learning to write them themselves. But the good news is Microsoft has already produced a system that tells you if an article was written by ChatGPT. If some students are smart enough to go in and edit themselves, then maybe they'll get away with it. But this one's a funny one. Students are probably going to start using AI to write and won't learn writing for themselves, but not quite yet, maybe just a few more years. We've already mentioned plagiarism. So did we have any more? We're at the end of, we're talking about the controversial section now. Were there any more outstanding questions or concerns that you guys had about ChatGPT before I go into my final thoughts?
My thinking is that when this first hit, I remember, I don't know if it was a gag, but BuzzFeed said, we're firing everybody. We're just going to use Chat-GPT from now on, because their articles aren't exactly long, aren't exactly deep, aren't exactly deep. So I guess it was a pun, but it crossed my mind that a lot of the internet content, because there's so much content being asked for, that ChatGPT will fill a huge part of what the internet will be. And I guess we'll just add to the echo chamber. I don't know, difficult.
I believe so. I think there's already a layer of mud that separates the quality content and maybe a lot of the more trash. And ChatGPT is a new pipeline into the lake.
Oh, God.
Danielle brought up a topic earlier in the chat that I think is interesting when you think through your samples, which was about the fact that the emotional or internal thoughts, if you will, of characters or storylines isn't there yet. But I think that's also because it's a statistical model. So plot lines are likely to be more easily defined from a statistical approach than more emotional kind of internal content so far. Meaning, it's a little bit more easier to interpret storylines, et cetera. But I do think that when I saw the ones about the cyberpunk cowboys, I was thinking there must be a lot of really bad cyberpunk cowboy stories out there that it learned on.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I think there's a lot of mediocre writing that ChatGPT was able to train on, and it learned some terrible habits, maybe for the best of all of us.
Yeah, but for something that's not even a toddler yet, it's pretty good junk out for the junk in, for what it's been fed.
Oh, yeah.
Since I think learning to write and read are like how the brain forms, this to me is Skynet in diapers, but okay, I for one welcome our computer overlords.
I know, Johnny, I'm sorry that a part of this is the bad news that yes, it's very good.
It's not bad.
So basically, if you've got a novel, make sure it's published within 10 years before Skynet comes and takes your job.
Well, the interesting thing is it sounds like they're going to price out the average consumer, which is going to be interesting. So that's something.
I hope so.
I don't mean to kind of be advocating for censorship, but I don't know. I guess it's only a matter of time. I knew it was coming. It's already been done for music and art. I knew this was coming. So
yeah, I really want to hear other people's thoughts too, because I'm an old fart, and I can in my brain I can roll back all the way to the creation of the pocket calculator, to think about how technologies have rolled through the culture and eliminated jobs and shifted society in dramatic ways. And most of you on the phone here can only think back to maybe the beginning of the internet. And while that one maybe is the biggest up till now, all the others, going back to the train, had dramatic changes too. But I really want to hear what other people are thinking emotionally and intellectually.
If I start talking a lot, will I derail your presentation? Do you still have more slides? Because I don't want to launch into stuff.
Just a conclusion.
You do your thing. You do your thing.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'll dive into the conclusion. We can keep discussing after.
I was just going to say there was a couple of comments I think should probably be added in. Danielle put in author link had to apologize because they were using chatbots for their blogs and posted inaccurate information.
And I'll add that inaccurate information was that several major publishing houses had gone out of business. They had not.
Wow. I'll note, every time a mistake is made by ChatGPT and it's published somewhere, they hard code update the ChatGPT to never get it wrong again. The mistakes I mentioned, I tried to test them myself and they all passed correctly.
So the one thing that I had that I was thinking about that hasn't been brought up is I do understand language as a constantly changing, thing. We're always coming up with new words, inventing new phrases, new ways of using words. And from what you're telling me, it doesn't look like Chat-GPT can keep up with those changes or create new changes. That's something that has to be done by a person.
Yeah. In fact, there's a warning on ChatGPT when you use it that says all information is considered, if you're asking for any information about news after January 31st, 2021, the information will be unreliable or completely unavailable, because that's when ChatGPT was trained. Great, let's dive into the finale here. So you guys have picked it up. ChatGPT breaks everything. Writers, managers, and executives who don't want to pay writers, entrepreneurs, everyone is probing at what ChatGPT is capable of as we speak. This is a trend that isn't going to go away. ChatGPT is the beginning of an ongoing writer's industrial revolution. If you're afraid ChatGPT will change things, you're right, it will. For many writers, the occupation is going to change entirely. We're going to see people who used to churn out hundreds of articles chased away by ChatGPT's industriousness. At the same time, we're going to see a huge rise in the need for editors, people who can cut down ChatGPT's overly verbose, factually inaccurate goop into a final product worth publishing. Now, don't forget, ChatGPT cannot emulate your life experiences, and it cannot replicate your unique perspectives on the world. It can pretend to, but pretty soon, ChatGPT is going to run out of life stories to plagiarize. Even when the bulldozers come crashing in, there will always be a market for sincere, original content. In some ways, in my opinion, ChatGPT is a fad. Everyone's been clamoring to see AIs write content, but soon we're going to be sick of regurgitated slop that ChatGPT tosses out of its service. Over time, as the market is saturated with formulaic AI-generated content, people will want original stories. You, by being a real person sharing yourself, will continue to be valuable. As genre writers, we are artisans, and mass production isn't going to wipe us out. Now, I'd like to thank you all for coming to my presentation today, and I want to make a quick recommendation for a book called You Look Like a Thing and I Love You. This is a wonderful book by Janelle Shane that is sort of if you want an early picture of where neural networks, the small ones are and where the big ones are and where that leap is, this book covers it wonderfully. Thank you all for coming.
We'd like to thank you, Logan, for what you've done in presenting this. I think there's a lot of great information. For anybody that's watching this online afterwards, this is being brought together by the Infinite Monkey Genre Writers of the League of Utah Writer. Feel free to join us. We're located in Utah, but you don't have to be. And like we'd like to tell people, we're the chapter of people that we take our writing serious, not ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you.